Why bank offshore? This is the world. I'm Marco Werman. Parking your money in Panama and other offshore tax havens isn't always illegal.
I'm sure in some cases people have reasons that are, they're not committing crimes. But always you're looking to hide your wealth for one reason or another.
So, that bothers at least some wealth managers who help the super rich.
One of the guys I interviewed actually said, I tell all my coworkers, if I ever become like our clients, just shoot me.
And then an English village that was literally built around an ancient stone.
Everyone knows it's there. It's a historical spot. People come to visit it and to see it, and pagans come and worship there as well.
Problem is, the rock's in the middle of a road now. The stories today here on The World. Good to have you here today. Let's start with the Panama Papers, that massive document leak detailing how the wealthy and powerful hide their money. The leak claimed its first political victim today. The Prime Minister of Iceland resigned after the Panama Papers revelation that he and his wife own an offshore company. The scandal is causing a big enough stir that President Obama weighed in.
Tax avoidance is a big global problem. It's not unique to other countries, because, frankly, there are folks here in America who are taking advantage of the same stuff. A lot of it's legal, but that's exactly the problem.
The president called on the Treasury Department to close tax loopholes to make it harder for companies to stash cash offshore. We're going to look at the Panama Papers from a couple of different angles today. First of all, they're not actual papers. They're electronic documents, more than 11 million of them. That's 2.6 terabytes of raw data. And right there, we wanted to know, how can we even make sense of so much data? Timothy McGrath is a digital editor in our newsroom. Tim, you've been digging into this side of the story, just the size alone of the data leak. Put that into context. What does 2.6 terabytes mean in terms of the magnitude of this leak and what's in it?
Right, Marco. So I would say that the size of the leak is one of the biggest stories about it. 2.6 terabytes, that's 2,600 gigabytes. So for a little bit of context, if you look at other major data leaks in recent history, you've got Edward Snowden's surveillance leaks. Those are around 60 gigabytes estimated to be. The WikiLeaks diplomatic cables sent to the State Department, those are around 1.7 gigabytes. So again, we're talking orders of magnitude larger.
It's huge.
Let me just throw a few numbers at you about what's inside those 2.6 terabytes. First of all, in terms of time, you've got 40 years of operations that it's covering. You've got 4.8 million emails. You've got 3 million database files. You have around 2 million PDF documents. Also buried in there, you've got 214,000 different companies. So you've got connections also to around 140 politicians, close associates, 12 heads of state. So these are big numbers.
Data going back 40 years and including everything up until the end of 2015. So how did journalists make any sense out of all of this? Did someone read all 11.5 million documents of data?
Yeah, you just started page one, Marco, and start reading. No, the short answer to that is no. This operation was really being headed up by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, and they organized 400 journalists at around 109 different media organizations and spent a year digging into this giant cache. So it's a huge operation. Then there's also a sort of technological story happening here, because humans can't dig through this amount of data. Thank God we have computers. On the front end, the platform that journalists ended up actually using to dive into this data looked something like Google. So the computer would then help them dig into this sort of massive cache and start pulling out some of the network connections and start telling some of the stories that are the sorts that you see in the headlines on your Twitter feed for the last 36 hours or so. And so we've barely scratched the surface of the data contained in this leak. Who knows what else is in there?
Yeah, more to come, no doubt. Tim McGrath with our digital team here at The World. Thank you.
Thanks, Marco.
So if you're ultra rich and looking to stash your billions in offshore accounts, you'll probably get some help doing it. And that's where wealth managers come in. My next guest is Brooke Harrington. She wanted to find out more about how these wealth managers work. So she decided to study and become one herself. And that, Harrington says, allowed her to enter their world.
Some of the people I interviewed, several of them in different countries, actually described their work as not just the technical task of evading the laws, but as social work for the rich. That was a direct quote from some of them. And a lot of their frustrations came with feeling that their clients were really kind of bad people. One of the